Good evening all.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. So today we are going to discuss solution. So I hope you have some basic ideas about solution. So solution is nothing but a homogeneous mixture between two substances. One is called solute, another one is solvent. So if we combine together, we will get the solution. So you can see here as a pictorial representation of solution. So if you take a solvent and if you mix solute, it will give a solution. So it is not necessary that we will observe a color change, but sometimes we may observe color change, right? So if you add let's say sodium chloride in water, that is also give us a solution, but it is a colorless
solution.
So there we usually don't observe any change in color, but depends on the solute, depends on the solvent. Sometimes we may observe color change, right? So now this is the very basic things we all know from class 8 standard, right? So now here, as we are in the 12th standard, so we need to go a little bit in depth, right? So first, characteristic of the solutions, right? So basically two important points here we need to remember, right? So one is that it is a homogeneous in nature and yet retaining the properties of its constituents, and it is made of two parts, one is solute and solvent. So now first point we need to understand little bit more. Suppose if you take water and if you take sodium chloride, you will get a solution, right? But inside the solution, sodium chloride will not change its property and water also will not change its property. So they will remain as it is, right? So water remain as it is water and sodium chloride remain as it is. So there is no reactions, right? There might be some weak interactions, hydrogen bonds, ion dipole interactions, but there is no such reaction. So if the reactions occur, so then we will not take it, call it a solution, right? Sometimes what happens, solute might react with the solvent and give a solution. That is, this solution, chemical entity of this solution is different. So there is no solute, there is no solvent. That is a new chemical entity. So then we can't tell it's a solution. So that is a reaction. But here we need to remember it's a homogeneous in nature, yet retaining the properties of its constituents. That is the most important thing, right? So now another important definitions we need to remember here, that is the solubility, right? What is solubility, right? The solubility of a solute is its amount per unit volume of saturated solution at a specific temperature. So unit is gram per mole. So here whenever you write the definitions of solubility, two things always you keep in mind, right? One is the volume, another one is the temperature. Because why the temperature word is important here? So because the solubility of any solute depends on the temperature, right? So that's why we need to, whenever we will write the definitions, we must remember the unit volume and temperature. Suppose you are telling the solubility of sodium chloride is x gram per liter at certain temperature, let's say 25 degrees. So if you don't tell the temperature, so what will happen? So that the information is missing. So you are not giving clear cut information, right? So some information is missing. So now whenever you write the definition of solubility, so the temperature and unit volume, this two things you must remember, right? Students sometimes forget to mention this temperature or sometimes forget to write the unit volume. So here, now here is the one word is there, saturated solution. So what is the saturated solution? This is the first time we are hearing, right? Saturated solution. So normal solution and saturated solution. What is the basic difference? So now what is the saturated solution? A solution that is in equilibrium with pure solute. No more solute can be dissolved. So that means suppose you have taken a 100 ml of water, right? You have added let's say 1 gram of sodium chloride. So it solubilizes, right? So again you can add 1 gram of sodium chloride. Again it gets solubilized. That means this solution is not yet a saturated solution. So if you add more, if after adding the sodium chloride, if it can't get solubilized, then this solution is a saturated solution. So that means it's a equilibrium. Equilibrium you have studied in 11th standard. So the amount of solute going to the solution and the solute coming out from the solution, they remain in the equilibrium. So from outside you can't see any change. So the solid particle, solid sodium chloride will be remain as it is in the bottom part of the solution. So that means it's a saturated solution. So no further, you can't solubilize any further sodium chloride, right? So now type of solution, it's like a colloidal solution we have studied in 11th standard. So here also there are different types of solutions. So whenever we speak the or talk about the solution, the first thing came in our mind, that is the solid liquid. Solvent is liquid and the solute is solid. But it is not always, right? So there are different types of solution. Let's see some examples. So gas can also make a solution. Mixture of gases. Example is air, right? Gas liquid is a, what is the example? Vapor, air or mist, right? So in mist, what is the air is the solvent and the mist particle is the solute, right? So gas solid is also possible. Sublimations of solid into gas and smoke storms. Liquid gas, CO2 gas dissolved in the water, that is the lemonade, coke, whatever we take. So that is the, what we are dissolving? We are dissolving gas into the liquid. So similarly liquid, mixture of immiscible liquid, we can mix alcohol with water, so that will also give us a solution. So liquid solid, salt in water, sugar in water, right? So that is the very common. So if I ask any student to give an example of solution, student usually tell that sodium chloride in water or sugar in water. So that is the most common example, the one and liquid solid, right? And solid gas, adsorption of gases over metals. Adsorptions also we have studied in 11th standard. So it's a surface phenomena. So where gas molecule sits on the top of the metal surface or any adsorbent. Solid liquid, that is the mercury in zinc or mercury in gold, that is called amalgams. So we know there are lots of uses of amalgams. Solid is the homogeneous mixture of two metals, alloys, right? So alloy is an example of a solid solution. So very important for the examinations, you have to remember this chart where what is the solvent, what is the solute, and with an example. So now solubility, what are the factors which affect the solubility or factors affecting the solubility, right? So now first is the temperature, right? Temperature is the very important factor which controls the solubility, right? In the definitions of solubility, we also have seen that the temperature term is there, right? And I told you to remember the temperature term. So now, how temperature affect the solubility? That we need to know. So, if we increase the temperature, what will happen? And if we decrease the temperature, what will happen? So that depends on the nature of the solution, or the whenever we are dissolving a solute in the solvent, so whether it is producing heat or it is absorbing heat. So that means it's whether it's an exothermic or an endothermic, right? So suppose exothermic means there is a production of heat is produced in the exothermic reaction, and endothermic means heat is absorbed, right? So now for here we need to remember the La-Chatelier principle. So that we studied in the 11th standard, right? So what is La-Chatelier principle? So if you change the external environment, the reactions will adjust itself such a way, so we try to minimize the external effects, right? External effects. Suppose for a exothermic reaction, so heat is produced. So suppose if you increase the temperature, what will observe? Backward reactions will observe. For endothermic reactions, heat is absorbed. If you increase the temperature, forward reaction, and vice versa. So suppose you are dissolving a substance X in the, let's say, solvent Y, and it is producing heat. So now you are increasing the temperature. So what will happen? With increasing temperature, solubility will decrease. With increasing temperature, solubility is decreased. So now you are dissolving, let's say, A in the solvent Y. So now it is absorbing, means temperature is decreasing. Now if you increase the temperature, solubility will increase. And if you decrease the temperature, solubility will decrease. This is how temperature affect the solubility. Right? Next point is the nature of solute and solvent. So here two important things we need to remember: nature of the solute and the nature of the solvent. So nature of the solute means here I am talking about the polar and non-polar. So solvent can be polar, solvent can be non-polar, solute can be polar, solute can be non-polar, right? So let's so what is the example of solute, polar solute? Let's say sodium chloride. Ionic compounds are usually polar in nature. So non-polar solute, organic compounds. Let's say benzene, chloroform, phenol, aniline. These are the examples of non-polar solutes, right? So and solvent can also be polar and non-polar. So polar solvent means water, and non-polar solvent means benzene, kerosene, petrol. These are all example of non-polar solvent. So polar solute like polar solvent, non-polar solute like non-polar solvent. So try to understand with an example. So let's see the polar solute. What is the polar solute? Let sodium chloride. Why it is polar? Because it forms ionic bond. Complete transfer of electron from sodium to chloride. Sodium is plus and Cl is minus, right? And water is highly polar. So why water is polar? Due to the high dipole moment. So polarity is usually judged by the dipole moment, right? So if the solvent having high dipole moment, that means it is polar solvent. If solvent having zero or very less dipole moment, that means it is non-polar solvent. So sodium chloride we can dissolve in water, but we can't dissolve sodium chloride in petrol, kerosene, benzene, chloroform, right? So because these are the examples of non-polar solvent. So similarly, we can dissolve naphthalene in chloroform, benzene. So naphthalene is an example of non-polar solute. So we can easily dissolve in the non-polar solvent. So but we can't dissolve naphthalene in water, which is a polar solvent. So now you can ask, sir, sugar is an organic compound, but still it is soluble in water. But sugar is highly polar, although it's an organic compound, but it is highly polar due to the presence of multiple OH groups. This OH bond imparts polarity in the sugar, so that's why it gets solubilized in the polar solvent, right? So it is not like that the organic means all organics are non-polar. So it depends on the dipole moment, depends on the functional group attached to the compound, right? So now pressure. So it is very important. Pressure as such, for if we take solid solute, like sodium chloride in water, right? So there is no effect of pressure. So if you increase the pressure, solubility remains same. If you decrease the pressure, but solubility remains same. But it is not like that in case of if you take gas as a solid, or if you try to dissolve gas in the any liquid solvent. Let's say Coke. So this is a carbonated drink. So whenever we open the Coke bottle, so what we observe, there is a evaporation of CO2, and after sometimes we if we taste it, we will feel there is no CO2, and we will not get the proper taste. That means all the CO2 comes out from the Coke, right, or the Coke solutions, right? So it will not give the pleasant taste, right? So that's why we always preserve the Coke in a closed container. So if you want to dissolve CO2 in the liquid or dissolve any gas in the liquid, you need to maintain high pressure. Then only you can solubilize the gas in the liquid. So there is a relation between or the pressure can affect the solubility of for the gaseous solute or the solute gaseous in nature, right? So now here one important law we need to understand. As such, for solid solute there is no such effect of pressure, but there is a direct relations of the pressure and the solubility for the gaseous solutes, right? So now for gaseous solutes, here we need to study the Henry's law. So what is Henry's law? It states that the solubility of gas in a liquid is directly proportional to the pressure of the gas over the solution. So if we increase the pressure, solubility increases. If you decrease the pressure, solubility decreases. The solubility is directly proportional to the pressure of the gas over the solution. So you need to maintain a constant pressure over the solution, then only you can dissolve the gaseous solute in the solvent. Otherwise it would be difficult. If you decrease the pressure or remove the pressure, again the solubility decreases and gases will come out from the solution, right? So now here we need to know the mathematical expression. So whenever we read any laws in the physical chemistry or physics, so always we try to explain or try to express in terms of mathematics. So then it will be easy for us to understand, right? So mathematical expressions. So if S is the solubility and P is the pressure of the gas, so what we can say, according to the Henry's law, S is directly proportional to the pressure. So S is directly proportional to the pressure, or what we can write, S is equal to KH into P. What is KH? KH is the proportionality constant or Henry's gas constant. Henry's gas constant. So or KH is equal to S by P we can write. So now what is S by P? So S by P is the solubility by pressure. So now if I ask you to tell the unit of KH or the definition of KH, we can easily tell from this equation. So let's first try to understand the unit of KH. So solubility unit is the moles per liter. We have previous slide we have discussed, and pressure unit is the bar or a atmosphere or mercury, AgMM, something like that. So what we can write? So moles per liter inverse per bar inverse. So moles, sorry, here it is not inverse, it is moles per liter bar inverse. Mole liter inverse bar inverse. So there is some typos error is there. This is not inverse, right? Mole liter inverse and bar inverse, right? So now definition from this mathematical expressions we can also tell the definition. So what is the definition of KH? KH is nothing but a solubility of gas in a liquid when it's the pressure over the solution is 1 bar. So now what we can write, if you put P is equal to 1, then KH is equal to S. KH is equal to S. So that is the how we can tell the definition. KH is nothing but the solubility when the pressure is unity. Pressure is unity. So very important relations. One thing you need to remember here, that this Henry's law is only applicable for gaseous solute. So if we take the solid solute and liquid solvent, it is not applicable because there is no relation between the solubility for the solid solute with the pressure, right? So no Henry's law, we can't use the Henry's law. So now what is the limitations of Henry's law for, and what is the applications of Henry's law? So now gases should not react with the solvent. In the definition of the solubility or the solution, we also discussed that solute react with the solvent, so then we can't tell it's a solution. Sometimes what happens, gases may react with the solvent and gives us a different product. We from outside it looks like a solution, but it's not a true solution. So it's a different chemical entity, right? So this law is not valid if gas reacts with the solvent, right? So this is the limitation. Gas should not associate or dissociate in the solution. Sometimes what happens, after dissolving, gas decomposes. So there is a decomposition of gas. Maybe if let's say some example, X, Y gas you are dissolving in the solvent, and after dissolving it breaks down, X plus Y minus or X plus Y. So then also we can't tell it's a solution, right? So the definition of solubility what we discussed, that the individual solute and solvent should remain its entity intact, right? So there should not be any chemical change of the solvent and solution. Same thing is applicable here also. So this law is not applicable for highly concentrated solution. That is very important. Henry's law we can't apply very highly concentrated solution. And use of the Henry's law, whatever the soda water we take as a drink, soft drink, or a refreshing drink, these are there. We use the Henry's law or apply the Henry's law. So now next topic is the vapor pressure of solution and Raoult's law. So now first things we need to remember what is vapor pressure. We have already discussed the vapor pressure in the 11th standard. Can you tell me what is the vapor pressure? What is vapor? How vapor produced?
When we heat some substance at 100 degrees Celsius, it transforms into liquid, transforms into vapor.
Yes. Without heating also liquid converts to evaporates, right?
Yes.
So if we keep any liquid in a container, some of the liquids evaporates and occupy the vacant space of the container, right?
Yes.
So it is quite usual. So if you keep the water in an open container, what happens? Slowly the water evaporates, and after some time you observe there is a decrease in the volume, right? So evaporation is a continuous process, right? So whether we are applying heat or not applying heat, even in the room temperature also evaporation occurs. But for boiling we need to apply heat, right? So we, unless and until we reach the boiling temperature, no solvent or no liquid boils, right? So but evaporation spontaneously occurs, right? So now evaporation means the liquids is going to the vapor phase, right? So now here we are talking about the vapor pressure. So what is the vapor pressure? And then we will discuss the Raoult's law. If you forget the vapor pressure, then it will be very difficult to understand the Raoult's law. So that's why I am giving a very simple example. So what we can pictorially present here. So suppose although the picture is not clear, but what I can say is that suppose you are keeping a liquid in a closed container. Liquid in a closed container. And the some part of the container is occupied by the liquid, some part remain vacant, right? So now if you remove the air or whatever the things are there, if you remove that, make it air free, right? Or you reduce the pressure or remove all the substances or air, gases, whatever there. So now you keep it as it is, right? Keep it as it is. So after some time what will happen? The vacant space will be occupied by the vapor of that particular liquid, right? So now wherever these molecules will go to the vapor phase, so it will create vapor pressure. So in the gases also we have studied that the number of moles is directly proportional to the pressure. So if we number of moles of vapor is directly proportional to the pressure, it will apply. Right? So now if we connect this a pressure measurement instrument or anything with that container, so then we will get the vapor pressure at that particular temperature. Here also temperature is very important. So as Shubham told, so if you increase the temperature, evaporation rate increases, right? So evaporation occurs at all the temperature, right? So whether it's a low temperature, high temperature, every temperature evaporation occurs. But if you increase the temperature, evaporation rate of evaporation increases. So that in the summer time we observe the water body is dried up so easily. Yes. But in the winter it takes lots of time. And another thing, evaporation also depends that how much molecules are present in the atmosphere. So in the if humidity is there, our this evaporation takes longer time, right? So if we in the rainy season, if we observe that the cloth is wet cloth takes longer time to dry up, right? So evaporation not only depends on the temperature, it also depends on the environment. So if the number of molecules present in the environment is higher, so then it is already in the equilibrium with the liquid state and the vapor state. So now it is very difficult to the further water molecule to go to the vapor state, right? So now it is if same things here you can see, if a sample of water in its liquid phase is placed in an empty container and some of it will vaporize from gaseous water. This change is called evaporation, and we can write the equation of evaporation occurs spontaneously as if it were as a chemical equation, H2 liquid to H2 gas. So here there is a change in phase taking place. So H2 is a liquid state to gaseous state. So now, and the Kp, Kc we have discussed. So in the chemical equilibrium, so what will be the Kp? Here the equilibrium constant is directly to the pressure of the water molecule present in the gaseous state. So that is the relations of Kp versus with the pressure of the water molecules. Now Kp is the equilibrium constant. For gaseous molecule we express Kp, and for the liquid solution we express Kc. That you studied in 11th standard chemical equilibrium chapter. And pH2 is the vapor pressure of water. Right? So now you understood the vapor pressure. So now we can go to the next slide. So as we already discussed, factors affecting the vapor pressure, right? So temperature is the one thing I already told you. If we increase the temperature, so evaporation increases. So another important thing is the nature of the liquid. So we know that ethanol evaporates fast compared to water, or petrol evaporates fast compared to the water, even in the same temperature, right? Yes. So that also depends on the boiling point. Boiling point, and what the boiling point actually depends with the molecular interaction. So if the molecules having strong interactions, the two neighboring molecules, the attraction force between two neighboring molecules is higher, then its the boiling point will also be higher. Like in case of if we compare water with petrol, so there is a hydrogen bond present in the water. So that is the very strong intermolecular interactions or weak interactions. But in case of petrol, there is only van der Waals forces are there, and compared to the hydrogen bond, van der Waals forces are weak, right? So that's why petrol evaporates faster. So the nature of the liquid also plays crucial role, right? So now that's why we can directly write the vapor pressure is inversely proportional to the strength of the intermolecular forces between the molecules. If we increase the strength between the two molecules, that vapor pressure is also